the continent of Yilan, a world of sword and magic. This world is ruled by the strongest, and the most respected of them are the 3 reverends and 4 saints. The 4 saints founded 4 schools and their teachings spread all over the world, while the reverends on the contrary isolated themselves from worldly problems, and no one can change that. After all, the saints and reverends have absolute power, and their followers prosper, but the rebels die without a chance for resistance. However, the old orders eventually change to new ones, and new heroes are born. The story begins as the sky spews a flash, nearly hitting a 3-headed wolf. After that, the fog cleared and it could be seen that along with the flash, a kid fell on the 3-headed puppy. When the 3-headed wolf saw that this man had made an attempt on his child's life, he was about to eat him. The kid, hurt from the fall, wiped away the blood and wondered where he'd gotten to. Suddenly, he smelled a vicious stench and turned around to ask who was stinking, but unfortunately, he saw a huge 3-headed wolf. After which he realized he was in trouble. Realizing the situation he was in, the boy immediately began to run away from the wolf as fast as he could. But he did not lag behind. Suddenly, the 3-headed wolf roared loudly, stunned the enemy and released an icy blade, which the boy was lucky to dodge. After which, he raised his head and saw that the blade was able to cut through the wood with ease. And without wasting time he continued to run away, asking the wolf to stop chasing him, because he got into his lair by accident, and therefore revenge was not necessary. And again dodging the icy breath, he thought that his life was too miserable, because he would die immediately after transmigration to this place. Then he cried and called the wolf a troll, for his disgusting breath had materialized in physical form. And on top of that, he had never been hygienic since he was born. And lastly, the boy wished that the wolf's daughter would never marry. Hearing this, the wolf howled and began to release even more energy, after which he launched a huge energy ball at the kid. As suddenly, information about the Hua Xia technique creating endless miracles appeared in his mind. Steps in which a strong wind appears and the drawn blade creates a rainbow, while the strength and speed increases by 3 times. He wondered why the techniques he had learned as a child suddenly popped into his head as he suddenly felt a surge of energy, after which he decided to take his life in his hands and used the flash, instantly running away from the wolf. Literally moments before the 3-headed wolf's energy attack caught up with him. By utilizing his new abilities, he was far away from his former troubles and could take a breather. He was surprised that a technique he had learned that didn't work when he was a kid suddenly began to work in this world. Suddenly he saw a shadow in front of him and realized it looked quite familiar. After which he turned around and said he could explain everything to him. Immediately after that he had to run away as the beast was clearly not going to listen to his explanations. But running through the bushes he suddenly found himself in the air, then began to fall on the girl who happened to be standing there. And though he shouted for her to run away from here as far as possible, still, he fell on top of her, knocking her to the ground in the process and causing her to blush. Immediately afterward their beast did catch up with them, and he was getting ready to taste the meat. But seeing the girl on the way, he was forced to push her away so she wouldn't get hurt by the monster's clutches, because of which he was able to give him a laceration with his claws, from which the boy assured himself that he had been his for an hour. Suddenly, an old man appeared out of nowhere and delivered a mighty blow with his sword, from which the disgruntled monster was thrown farther away from the two of them. Pushing the monster away, he asked Wei if she was hurt by its paws, and she said she was fine because she was very bright, but she felt like someone else was around. Whereupon her grandfather asked about this kid lying at their feet. She tries to remember, and she immediately panicked when she saw that he was injured. The old man asked Wei to take care of the boy, and he threw himself at the night panther so that it wouldn't bother them anymore. Wei took the guy in her arms and tried to reach him while he was in pain, but was glad that at least he could save such a cutie. After losing consciousness, the kid found himself in a dark place unknown to him, and he wanted to find out who he was and where he was. Suddenly, he saw a memory in which he was being mocked by his peers. They mocked the fact that after reading fantasy he had started believing in cultivation, and they also mocked the fact that he was an orphan, thinking he was stupid because of it. In the next flashback, the girl he confessed to threw roses at him. She said that if she hadn't lost the bet, she wouldn't have looked at him, but she wouldn't have gone near him. When he heard the argument, he realized he had been wrong all along, for he truly believed that at least someone needed him. In the last memory he was talking to his friend in the game, who was going to go to the store with his wife, and at the same time advised the guy not to sit so much at the computer, because so he has not only a girl, but even friends will not be. The peers sitting next to him mocked him, calling him a loser who can't get away from his computer, because rumor has it he's been sitting here for a month. The kid thought his life was now even worse than that of a stray dog, and wished that it all turned out to be just his nightmare. Suddenly he heard the voice of the girl he had saved, threatening to hit him if he didn't wake up right away. In a half-asleep state, the kid grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her toward him. Realizing the situation he was in, he let the girl go, and she, covering her face in shame, asked him what he was doing, after which he apologized and explained that he was a little overexcited because of sleep. Suddenly, they heard an old man shouting loudly, demanding Lu Feng to come down to him right away as there was a job for him. Wei started pushing Lu Feng out of bed, asking him to hurry up, because Grandpa was about to get angry. Since Lu Feng had already been in this world for a month, he thought for sure that luck was clearly not on his side. After all, he had managed to die from a computer explosion, causing him to fall into the continent of Ilien. Once he arrived in this world, he was immediately chased by a three-headed wolf, but luckily, Wei Er and her grandfather rescued him and even took him with them. On the continent of Ilien, anyone can develop physical and magical powers. There are 11 levels of power. Those who have reached the 9th level are called masters and the 10th level is called saints, but only those who have reached the highest level can become a reverend, and there are even legends that there is a level higher. Most of the population is either level 3 or 4. While Haku's grandfather is a level 5 swordsman and Wei Er is a disciple of one of the 4 saints, Lan Di, and all Lu Feng has is the Huaxia technique, and although it was completely useless, but when he was young he believed it was the strongest. He truly believed it was strong, and after devoting a lot of time he was left with nothing. But suddenly it worked in this world. But it didn't work like that, and she hopes to develop it with the magic of this world. He felt that he was not so badly off in this world, for he had nothing to lose in the past world. Suddenly, Wei Er shoved Lu Feng's clothes in his face, and calling him a bum ordered him to get dressed. As soon as Lu Feng changed his clothes, Wei Er was happy that the outfit suited him and even said that he looked like a mercenary. Trying to buckle the strap, he asked Wei Er if it was a compliment or an insult, but she couldn't bear to watch him torture the clothes any longer, and calling him an idiot she decided to do it herself. Looking at her, Lu Feng marveled that such a cute girl could treat him so well. Downstairs, the customers were already shouting for Wei Er to bring them drinks. After finishing the orders, she handed a mountain of dishes to Lu Feng, warning him not to break anything, otherwise he would die at the hands of his grandfather. Suddenly someone loudly swung open the tavern door, drawing the attention of everyone present to themselves. Lu Feng stretched, finally finishing washing the mountain of dishes that the tavern had given him. Just as suddenly, Wei Er stealthily walked up to him and tapped his face with her finger. She started yelling at him and calling him an idiot, because he had picked up too many dishes at once, and if he dropped one because of that, Grandpa would kill him on the spot. Wei Er told him that she used to be careless like this before, but once her grandfather punished her, and since then she started to act more thoughtfully, and Lu Feng started to apologize to her out of embarrassment, promising that he would not do it again. Suddenly, she remembered an incident and asked Lu Feng why he decided to save her even though they didn't know each other, and Lu Feng awkwardly explained that he couldn't not save her then. After all, he was the one who brought the beast to them, and after all, her life was much more important than his. After all, he doesn't even have anyone who cares about him, and even if he died then, no one would even care about him. But unexpectedly, Wei Er shouted at him and asked how he could say such a thing. After all, she needs him, and he has also become a part of their family. Hearing this, Lu Feng smiled at the fact that he had become part of someone's family and thought Wei Er was cute. Just as suddenly, an unknown guy with an escort approached them and shouted at Lu Feng, pointing his finger at him. He immediately demanded that Lu Feng move as far away from his bride-to-be as possible. Hearing this, Lu Feng was shocked to the core by what he heard, and immediately asked Wei Er about it, to which she replied that that guy was in no way her fiancé. She demanded the lad to go where he came from, for she had the right to choose her own bridegroom, from which he asked if her grandfather knew about this tramp. Guy asked her not to forget that she was a disciple of a saint whom Lan Di, the president of Lan Xian Academy, greatly respects. In response, Wei Er shouted that he was a guest of her family and demanded that he should not be insulted like that anymore, and she would rather die than marry someone like him. The aristocrat was angry at what he heard, but the attendant reminded him of what the teacher had said. Then he asked Wei Er not to make him angry because he was just worried that she would be offended, and she shouldn't give him up so easily. After all, his father is the master of this city. Lu Feng was amazed that this brat's father was the master of the city, but Wei Er advised him to forget about him and just go back. The aristocrat warned Wei Er that she couldn't leave him, because if she married him, his father would pay her tuition to Xian Lan, and she must go to Xian Lan because there are elite mages and warriors studying there. all of them from famous aristocratic families, and if she doesn't marry him, she'll be a beggar like the boy next to her. Lu Feng wasn't going to tolerate Wei Er being treated like this, and calling Wei Er a bastard. He explained that he had insulted Wei Er by thinking that she would marry him for money. One of the aristocrat's subordinates couldn't take it anymore and offered to teach this insolent man a lesson. He was not going to tolerate him any longer and ordered Lu Feng not to kill him, but only to beat him so that he would know where he belonged. After which, Lu Feng grabbed Wei Er's hand and used hurricane steps to easily evade the enemy's attacks, and approached the aristocrat. He told the aristocrat that he could do nothing to him, for he could only command and bully the weak for days on end, which made him ridiculous. After all, he's just a common bully who can only watch his father's back. Hearing this, the nobleman could no longer tolerate this insolent man and raised his sword to get rid of him, but Lu Feng easily evaded his attacks, and was forced to admit that with such sword skills, he wouldn't even be able to touch him, after which, he decided to feed the enemy with his fist, causing his escorts to move more zealously towards Lu Feng. But to their dismay, Lu Feng was fast enough to beat them up without even getting a scratch. After dealing with the escorts, Lu Feng thought about how hurricane steps were indeed a useful skill, as they were so strong that his strength was able to triple as well. He even had a feeling that this was the same strength mentioned in Huaxia, and since his internal energy had opened up, it meant that he had officially started cultivating the Huaxia technique, and as it turned out, combat was the best way to become the strongest. But even so, he couldn't realize what level of strength he was at in this world. Wei Er said that she didn't know Lu Feng had such power, to which he replied that he didn't know before. And then he remembered what he had done and asked if they would get in trouble for beating up the city master's son. And Wei Er explained that it was their fault since they pounced, and if he came with his father, she would just complain to the teacher. Hearing this, Lu Feng was able to calm down and grabbed Wei Er and said that they should go back. Otherwise they would be late and Grandpa would give them a hard time. Wei Er wondered why a person with no magical powers was able to make her heart flutter. She couldn't understand how a person with no physical energy was able to deal with level 4 swordsman, and the moves he uses allowed him to move with incredible speed and no matter how you look at it. But it's clearly something unusual. Wei Er thought about who he was, but immediately decided to forget about it since it wasn't that important. After which, Wei Er suggested Lu Feng to go to the market. After all, she had heard that something new would be brought to the market today, and Lu Feng immediately agreed. Returning from the market, a satisfied Lu Feng hummed a love song. Er asked Lu Feng why he was so cheerful today, to which he replied that today he was able to improve Huaxia's technique, and besides being able to run, he was also able to use the technique on objects. Er didn't understand what Huaxia was and asked again, but Lu Feng laughed and made a face and said that he wouldn't say what it was. He then picked her up above the waist and told her there was only one thing she needed to know, and that was that he could protect her in the future, and asked if she was touched by that. Finding herself in such a situation, Er blushed and could only think that Lu Feng had gotten too close, and after a moment, she slapped his palm demanding he let her go, and Lu Feng groaned in pain trying to understand how this happened. Immediately afterward, he ran towards the tavern and shouted that whoever got to the tavern last would wash the dishes, which made Er resent it and demanded that he stop, as he had cheated by running first. After reaching the tavern first, Lu Feng immediately opened the door loudly and shouted for the old man to greet them. Immediately he saw that the bodies of the customers were scattered around the tavern, and the wounded grandfather was in the hands of the enemy. Seeing Wei Er, he immediately started begging for her to run away from here right now. After which, Lei Ting, who was the lord of Rongma city, greeted Er. Once Lei Nu saw Lu Feng, he immediately pointed at him and told his father that he had humiliated him and called their family trash. Seeing all this, Lu Feng became furious and began to unleash his power to deal with his enemies, after which, he used hurricane steps and began to rapidly approach Lei Ting, demanding that he let go of his grandfather. But Lei Ting only called Lu Feng a rather loud kid, and thought this trick was funny, but it was still too slow. As Lu Feng approached, Lei Ting used only one of his fingers to throw him straight into the wall. Er was scared for Lu Feng, and threatened Lei Ting, saying that she would tell her teacher about it. Even hearing this, Lei Ting decided to use his powers. He said that she wouldn't see her teacher again and that he wanted to use her to contact the saints. But since she wasn't interested in it, he had no choice but to remove the problem. After that, Er began to be enveloped in dark energy, squeezing her so that she couldn't breathe or cast spells. Lu Feng woke up from the blow and immediately rushed towards Lei Ting, demanding that he stop. but suddenly he threw his grandfather at him, dropping them both to the floor. After which, he immediately summoned the sword, releasing some energy. He immediately threw it at Lu Feng, but his grandfather saved him by covering him. Haku's grandfather asked for Lu Feng to grab Air and they would flee from here. Meanwhile he would detain Lei Ting, because they were no match for him, but Lei Ting waved his hand asking his brother why he was so eager to die. After which, he clenched his hand into a fist and ruthlessly took his life. After seeing her grandfather's death, Air unleashed all her power to remove her shackles. Lei Ting praised Air for showing strength, and immediately used even more strength, from which the dark fetters began to tighten, causing her incredible pain even more. But at the same moment, Lu Feng was able to get up and was preparing to knock Lei Ting out. But Lei Nu noticed him and warned his father, after which, the latter lazily used a bit of dais to throw Lu Feng into the wall. He asked him not to die so quickly, for he must see the end. Lei Ting knew that Air had always liked his son, and thus offered to take her right now. Hearing this, Lu Feng began to threaten Lei Nu with retaliation if he touched her with even a finger, but he only smiled at this. Lei Nu called Lu Feng a trash whose threats were meaningless, because there was no way he could save her. Lei Nu started tearing the clothes on Air, mocking the fact that she, being one of the saints, couldn't resist, while she screamed for him to let her go. Watching this, Lu Feng boiled with anger and was able to unleash even more strength than before, breaking the shackles. Lu Ting couldn't help but call this trick interesting, but still, Lu Feng was too weak compared to him. Lu Feng asked him what about the talented saints, to which Lei Ting replied that as long as they didn't become true saints, it was not difficult to get rid of them, and if teacher Air does find him, he'll just tell her how an unknown guy showed up at her door, after which he mercilessly killed her, and then give her his head. After which, Lei Ting suggested that Lu Feng should just die, and go to hell in peace. After which, he heard Air demanding Lei Nu to leave right now, and an explosion was heard a moment later. Turning around, Lei Ting saw that Air had managed to get rid of his shackles after all, as suddenly she began to gather all her energy, creating a blue crystal. Tears flowed from Air's eyes, and she asked that Lu Feng not worry about her. Lei Ting immediately realized that Air was going to kill herself along with him and was going to stop her, but it was too late to prevent the explosion. Lu Feng was shocked at what Air was doing and extended his hand, calling out to her. She admitted that she was really happy to be around him and wished him luck. Lu Feng rushed towards her to prevent her from dying, but suddenly, the space began to crackle, after which, it still shattered, and all Lu Feng was able to grasp was a ribbon of Air. All that was left of the tavern was a fiery ruin from Air's self-detonation. But even after something like this, Lei Ting was able to escape with his frightened son. At the same time, Lu Feng fell out of a portal that appeared far away from Rongma City. After coming to his senses, Lu Feng immediately picked up the ribbon belonging to Air, and holding it to his chest he swore he would kill that bastard and avenge them. After which, Lu Feng realized that he had no idea where he was, but he was determined to go back and take revenge. Suddenly there was a huge explosion nearby, creating a veil of smoke. Suddenly a black dragon appeared and two warriors fought over it, arguing over who would kill it, but unfortunately for them, the massive dragon's mere movement was enough to harm them. After which, he looked at Lu Feng and thought about it being an ambush, but immediately denied it since he was alone, and decided to just eat it since that's the best way to avoid thinking about it for nothing. Suddenly he smelled a peculiar odor from the one, and decided that the one might be an earthling, but his brief musings were immediately interrupted as a hail of arrows began to fly at him. Unfortunately, one of the arrows flew past him and went straight towards Lu Feng. Suddenly, the black dragon covered Lu Feng, causing him to be badly injured. Lu Feng was shocked that the dragon had saved him and asked why the dragon had saved him, but the dragon was only thinking that a bunch of level 7 insects dared to attack him. This arrow was fired by an old man with a bow, dragon killer, after which the remaining forces of people immediately moved on the dragon, preparing to kill him and the suspicious guy next to him, because after killing the dragon, they can easily capture his eggs. One of the warriors used meteor fire, but the dragon didn't dodge it, covering Lu Feng with its wing, which only made Lu Feng more anxious to know why it was protecting him. The black dragon turned to Lu Feng and said that he would deal with these people while he ran away far away, but Lu Feng couldn't move a single step, as he saw the scene of his grandfather covering him with his body in front of him again. Remembering how Haku's grandfather was killed, he wondered why others were protecting him. The warriors attacked the dragon again, preparing to deal it a single blow, but suddenly, Lu Feng shouted and started releasing a huge amount of energy. The dragon's blood entered his body, making his shell no longer able to hold his momentarily increased strength and began to crack. And in the same instant, Lu Feng used the power of the Dragon Fury Release aura. The dragon didn't have time to realize the unexpected turn of events, but suddenly the boy was right next to the enemies, and I was about to send these people straight to hell. The green-haired warrior told Lu Feng that rage would not be able to give him anything, as suddenly a girl jumped out in front of him, who immediately swung her axe to strike, shouted for him not to stand in their way, but to her surprise, he was able to stop her axe with his fist without any problem. Suddenly, there was an explosion, scattering both Lu Feng and the girl with the axe. The dragon swept Lu Feng up with its tail and told him to stay out of the way, as these were holy level masters with holy weapons. Upon landing, the girl was immediately interested in who her opponent was, for she could not understand how he was able to resist her wind. Suddenly, Lu Feng was able to break free from the dragon tail's grip and immediately rushed towards the girl, after which he was instantly transported behind her back. I was about to take her out with a single leg kick, just as suddenly his blow was blocked by the green-haired man's hammer. After that, Lu Feng flew back a dozen meters, destroying the ground in the process. Taking advantage of the distance gap, the green-haired man immediately used his hammer to launch several projectiles at Lu Feng, but the dragon blocked, telling him to be careful, for his opponents have a blessing, and his power is almost on par with the saints. When Lu Feng heard this, he couldn't help but think about it. Even though they were strong, they were hardly on par with that guy. And Lu Feng felt horrified at the thought that his strength must be simply unimaginable. Suddenly, Lu Feng spat out a copious amount of blood and tried to understand what was happening to him. His strength was depleted and the effects of the dragon's fury had already passed. Lu Feng fainted, and the black dragon was immediately distracted by him turning away from his opponent. And seizing the chance, the enemy leader immediately struck a sneaky blow. The girl shouted to the others not to sit around and went with her to beat the weakened dragon. Because of that, the dragon had no other option but to grab the kid and fly as far away from here as possible using magic. The old man and the dragon slayer along with the rest of the archers immediately began firing at the target. The leader of these warriors threw his sword at the dragon, shouting that they wanted to escape through the portal. But it was too late, as a portal opened and the black dragon immediately flew into it. The green-haired man was unhappy that the black dragon and the boy were able to get away, but the leader of the group said that he managed to throw his sword at the dragon, and the girl with the axe asked not to worry since she had managed to cast a spell on them. After a while, Lu Feng woke up again in a place that was unfamiliar to him. Suddenly he heard a voice from a man nearby. He said his name was Yate and that he had saved him. After thinking about who could have saved him, Lu Feng immediately realized that the sword in his chest looked familiar, and the man showed him one horn, asking why he didn't recognize him in human form. After realizing that it was a black dragon, Lu Feng immediately thanked him, and decided to help the dragon pull out the sword. But no sooner had Lu Feng touched the sword than the dragon started moaning in pain and shouting that it couldn't just be pulled out, because it would kill it, causing it to bleed heavily. Lu Feng immediately retracted his hands and, not realizing what he had done, began apologizing, saying that he didn't mean to, but the dragon immediately handed him the item so he could play with it in the future. Lu Feng asked if Yate was fine, to which he replied that he was perfectly fine. After all, this wound would heal in a month. Rising to his feet, Yate told them that they were in his fortress, and that it had been a long time since people had been able to find it. And he also said that they were people from 4 empires and different mercenary regiments, and that they were trying to steal his dragon egg. Then he said that he would show it, but seeing what he was doing, Lu Feng asked why he was hiding the egg in the garbage dump, to which he replied that it would be harder to find, and after a short period of time, he lifted the shiny egg upward with a satisfied grin. When Lu Feng saw it, he thought that it was just a big egg, but Yates suggested him to look at his girl, so Lu Feng had to ask why he was sure it was a girl, but he said that it was definitely a girl and that the egg was born by him. Yates said that about 6 months ago, he woke up and discovered that he was a black dragon, and afterward, he spat out that very egg, and began to nurse it, and since the egg came out of his mouth, it was definitely his, and he also assumed that all eggs were laid like this. After hearing this, Lu Feng couldn't disagree with Yates' words, but it was still strange. Suddenly, Yate held out an egg to him and said that he was giving it to him, and that Lu Feng was quite brave for daring to run around in this strange world that was not Earth. Upon hearing about the land, Lu Feng immediately started asking the dragon how he knew about it, and if there were still people from it, and Yate explained that he had encountered her in all those 6 months he had spent in this world. Just as suddenly, he put his hand on his wound and said with a groan. Lu Feng's support didn't help him much and he was getting worse. Lu Feng asked Yate what happened to his wound and if he could deal with it. And Yate said that he shouldn't die because he was a dragon, after which he asked not to worry about him, as he could still make jokes. Yate assumed that Lu Feng was wondering why on earth people dared to attack a dragon. Lu Feng confirmed the dragon's speculation, because as far as he knows, there are not even 100 dragons in this world, so he wondered why someone dares to attack him, wanting to steal the egg, because other dragons can take revenge. And Yate said that dragons used to protect their own, but many years ago a black dragon stole an egg from the dragon god, so the black dragons were kicked out of the dragon clan and no longer under their protection. And then people who wanted to get the power of dragons found out about it. They need a dragon egg because humans are still quite weak and unable to subdue an adult dragon, and even he was victimized by it. All day long they want to steal his egg. If he could find his way back to Earth, he would go right back to it. It's a broken place where you can't play mobile games and that's why people don't want to stay here. Lu Feng believed the dragon, but he wondered why his power had awakened in this particular place and what was happening to it. Yate explained that Lu Feng's strength was really strange, and that there was no such thing in this world. He had no spiritual or magical fluctuations, but his combat power was not weak, and asked how he did it. And Lu Feng explained that he doesn't know himself, but it probably has to do with some kind of internal exercise he's doing, after which Yate explained that it could be because he was different, and that his own power was different from the powers of this world. But, from the looks of it, he had already lived in this world for some time, and so Yato was curious how Lu Feng was able to enter this forest alone. When Lu Feng heard this, he remembered the incident again and said that he wanted to kill someone and send the souls of Wei Er and Grandpa Haku to heaven. After hearing this, the dragon immediately told Lu Feng that Wei Er could still be saved because there was a goddess of life in this world. And according to the legend, it was only a matter of minutes for her, but that was only if he could find her. Lu Feng realized that he really had a chance and started asking Yate about how to find the goddess of life. As suddenly the cave began to cave in and Yate immediately realized it was the vibrations from the humans and wondered how they found this place. Then he saw a blue butterfly that clearly shouldn't be here and immediately destroyed it, realizing it was tracking magic. He told Lu Feng that he would use teleporting magic again, and he would leave with his girl, and asked not to worry about him as he would have no problem running away from people. After which, he threw Lu Feng a sword and said that he would find him after he sorted things out here. He told him that this sword was a sacred weapon, but also that one must not use it too often or he would feel the recoil. Lu Feng thought that although he was weak, he was always protected, so he should become much stronger to be able to resurrect Wer Er and protect her and the dragon egg. Suddenly, a portal opened near Lu Feng and he began to fall into it, and at the same moment there were new spiritual vibrations capable of disrupting the portal, and he shouted to Lu Feng falling into the portal not to enter it, for the teleportation process had been disrupted. Li Feng interrogated the dragon's words, for it was already too late to do anything, and at this moment, blood dripped from his wound, which hit right on the surface of the dragon egg, causing it to start emitting energy. And in a moment, Lu Feng and his dragon daughter had already been completely sucked into the portal. Immediately after that, Lu Feng was once again transported to an area unknown to him, which was the territory of the shackles. But as the portal opened high in the sky, Lu Feng was not lucky enough to fall on his back. Rising from the ground, he tried to remember what Yate wanted to tell him as suddenly he noticed that his egg had cracked. Suddenly, the egg began to emit light again, causing Lu Feng to think that it was about to explode. And a moment later, the egg burst out, throwing Lu Feng away and creating a huge pillar of smoke. Afterward, he looked closely at it and saw that a small Chinese dragon had hatched from the egg. Lu Feng decided to take this cutie in his hands and started stroking it, pondering if it was really a girl. Just as suddenly, the dragonkin took human form and immediately struck Lu Feng. Then he rubbed the spot of the blow and looked at the dragon's whistle and asked where he had learned such a thing. But the dragonkin was not going to tolerate his gaze and struck again to teach him a lesson, and immediately created clothes for himself, while Lu Feng complained about spilling too much blood for the sake of giving birth to such a brazen dragoness. And Yate had said he had a girl, but a boy was born. But after a while, he spoke up, and sighed, asking why he had to bother with him at all. Suddenly the dragon crawled on his head and said he was hungry, which made Lu Feng frightened, and covering his nipples with his hands said he hoped that dragons don't drink milk. The dragon replied that he wanted meat, and Lu Feng had to agree to find him food, as his young body needed food. After which, Lu Feng drew his sword and immediately used storm steps. After a while people came to the place of teleportation. One of the warriors said that they were late because the guests had already left. He wondered if it could be a dragon or a human, because for a whole century no one strong enough appeared in these lands. After an hour, Lu Feng was still able to catch the prey and was already preparing it in front of the hungry dragon. And as soon as the meat was ready, the dragonkin immediately grabbed it and began to eat, looking at Lu Feng. But the latter began to justify that he was not hungry now, and the dragonkin cannot worry. After tasting the meat, the dragonkin said that the meat had a rather mediocre flavor and that he wasn't happy about it. After that, Lu Feng remembered that Yate had never given his child's name, so he decided to come up with one himself. And since the dragon was born so spectacularly, his name will be Xiaojin, which means special effect. Seeing the dragon's face, Lu Feng thought that by making such a face, the dragon was trying to mock his cultural level. After finishing eating, Xiaojin laid down at Lu Feng's feet and asked him not to disturb him while he slept. Looking at the sleeping dragon, Lu Feng hoped that Yate was able to escape without any accidents. But since he had entrusted his son, he was obliged to take care of him. He must become stronger for the sake of resurrecting their heir and protecting everyone. After looking around the area, Lu Feng thought that this was a great place to practice, after which he would need to gather clues about the goddess of life. And then he would find Yate as well. After a while in the main palace of the Xianlan Empire, Yadishan Ao was reading a book as suddenly a report came to him. The spy reported to him that he had a message from the team sent for the dragon eggs. They had failed the mission, and the black dragon had managed to escape. Hearing this, Yadishan Ao was enraged and called them all lowlifes, because even with their holy weapons, they could not fight a dragon. But the spy explained that it was because of the dragon's assistant, which was a child with black hair and eyes, and his subordinates were already searching for traces of him. But Yadishan Ao told the spy that there was no need for that as he had other plans. 10 days later, Lu Feng and the dragon cub lay surrounded by signs that said, meat. After a while of such pastime, a rumbling sound was heard from Xiaojin, and he complained that he couldn't take it anymore. But Lu Feng asked him not to worry about it, and focus on hunting. And right after that, they were approached by a wolf wanting to dine on some tasty meat. Suddenly someone told their boss they spotted someone. The mercenaries thought that Lu Feng was asking for their help since he was being chased by a 7th level red wolf. Hence they decided to rescue him. But immediately Beta suggested that it was all too suspicious. All because they've been wandering around for quite some time and haven't found anything. And the signs around the boy look very suspicious. The chief told Beat that caution is a good trait. But that boy is clearly in trouble now. He believed that the red wolf would never lose to them. So he ordered Erfa, Cover, and Saijima to follow him. And immediately they all pounced on the red wolf together. Just as suddenly, the wolf flew past their squad with one jump and managed to stay out of their attacks. After that, the mercenaries realized that the forces were not equal and began to scramble away. But running away, the chief shouted to Lu Feng to save himself as they diverted the wolf away from him. Left without lunch, Xiaojin began to sob. After all, they had been waiting for this wolf all day. But Lu Feng told him that the mercenaries were only trying to save them, and therefore they couldn't sit back. The mercenaries ran away from the wolf in panic, wondering why it was still chasing them. The gnome was disappointed that the chief was acting tough even though he couldn't kill a level 7 wolf, and the gnome himself didn't even have time to say goodbye to his sister. Suddenly the chief, who was running ahead of everyone, tripped over a rock and, to the surprise of the others, fell to the ground, which the red wolf immediately took advantage of and jumped on its prey. Just as suddenly, someone in the blink of an eye cleaved the wolf in midair. Lu Feng killed the wolf without any problems and thanked the mercenary for saving him. Just as suddenly, Xiaojin landed on Lu Feng's head and started yelling about wanting meat. In the evening of the same day, the mercenaries with Lu Feng and the dragonkin enjoyed the wolf meat. The chief was surprised at how talented Lu Feng was and admitted that he hadn't thought of him becoming someone's decoy. Lu Feng explained that he lured the beasts using the signs and lay on the ground pretending like he was already dead. But that wolf only ran after them when he saw them. After looking at the child, the chief asked Lu Feng how he could fit so much into him, and what they were doing here in the first place. Lu Feng told them that they had nowhere to go and that they were lost and didn't know where to go. Hearing this, the chief immediately clapped Lu Feng on the shoulder and told him not to worry. After all, he was a Ken who knew the entire continent well, and if he wanted to go somewhere, he could just ask him. Lu Feng was happy to hear this and immediately asked Ken if he knew where the goddess of life was, after which Ken could only rub his head and admit that he didn't know about the goddess of life, whereupon Beta decided to tell him that many years ago, when the War of the Gods had ended, all the gods of the world had ceased their activities, and since then no one had seen the goddess of life again. After hearing this, Lu Feng was in despair. He didn't know what to do next, because there was probably no way to resurrect Wei Er. Ken tried to comfort Lu Feng by telling him that if no one had ever seen her, it didn't mean that the goddess of life couldn't be found, and also he could join their squad, because becoming a mercenary he could enter the mercenary guild and buy all the information he needed. And the most important thing is that he will be able to take the quest, and having been rewarded he will no longer have to think about food, drink, big fish and meat. Lu Feng and Xiao Jin immediately agreed, because all Lu Feng wanted was to find the goddess of life, while Xiao Jin only dreamed of delicious food. Immediately afterward, Ken pulled out a huge stack of papers and said he had to sign it to join their ranks, and he began to tell me that this contract holds everything: insurance settlements for medical treatment, paid vacation, housing, food subsidy, disability, death insurance. Lu Feng asked him to stop, and said he would sign as he already had a headache from all this. After a while the mercenaries reached their goal. It was the center of operations of the human empire, the Fortress of Sunset. Upon entering the city, the mercenaries immediately went to the tavern to celebrate the addition to the squad. Ken explained to Lu Feng that this tavern was the best in Sunset Fortress, and although it was small, it had many kinds of wine. Afterward, the hostess served them the dragon blood beer they had ordered. Xiao Jin was unhappy that he was the only one eating juice, so he decided to ask the hostess to give him a stronger beer too. The hostess smirked and asked how old he was to drink such a thing, for alcohol is very harmful to adults. Xiao Jin proudly told her that if you counted his time in the egg, he was already over 100 years old, which made the woman surprised, but after a moment laughed since the child thought he was a dragon, and Lu Feng covered the dragon's mouth and told her that he liked to show off. After which, the mistress told Xiao Jin that she had to work first and therefore she would play with him later. Xiao Jin pulled Lu Feng by his collar and asked why he wouldn't let him admit that he was a dragon. After all, if his sister found out, she might like him. Lu Feng looked around in case of extra ears and whispered to Xiao Jin that there were too many people here, and if he confessed, everyone would start hunting him. Hearing that he might be killed, Xiao Jin was scared and still agreed to keep quiet about it. Suddenly, Ken came up to them and asked the depressed Xiao Jin if he was hungry, and promised that he would treat Xiao Jin to anything he asked for. Xiao Jin was happy at this suggestion and immediately called out to the beautiful sister to bring him a menu. And after a few minutes, Xiao Jin was already devouring the meat while Lu Feng was asking Ken if there were really merchants who knew about the goddess of life. Ken explained that they were now in the Sunset Fortress, the place where most of the merchants gathered, and whatever information you wanted to find you just had to come to the mercenary tavern. Then he pointed his finger at a table nearby and explained that the merchants were sitting there, whom they would interview. After a while, Ken and Lu Feng were exhausted after asking around, during which they learned nothing, and Ken decided to ask what Lu Feng was seeking the goddess of life for, then added if he was seeking immortality, and Lu Feng explained that he was looking for her to bring the people important to him back to life. Ken was pleased with what he heard, and praised Lu Feng for how loving and fair he was, then admitted that he was glad he could be his friend. As screams were suddenly heard from another part of the tavern, people couldn't believe how a child could do such a thing. Lu Feng was afraid that Xiao Jin might have done something to give him away and headed towards him, but on the spot, he saw Xiao Jin eating a whole mountain of food with his small cheeks. Ken was amazed at how much this kid could eat, and was afraid to think about the expense, and Lu Feng could only make excuses that Xiao Jin was still growing and therefore eating so much. As suddenly, a group of people led by the deputy chief of the Rhapsodian Mercenary Regiment, Wu Kai, entered the tavern. Seeing them, Ken immediately grabbed Lu Feng and said that they should leave since they had several conflicts with their Rhapsodic Regiment and they always wanted to take revenge, especially today they came as a group. But fortunately, Hai Ka and his regiment didn't start taking any hostile action and just sprawled out in a chair. At the same time, Ken was approached by his acquaintances who decided to say hello, and Ken suggested that Lu Feng go with him to introduce them to him. Wu Kai was telling the girl about how good the beef here was and offered her a taste, but the hostess had to apologize since they had no more beef left. After that, Wu Kai offered his girlfriend fried dragon claws because they are also very tasty, but the hostess apologized again, and when asked what they had left at all, She said they had no meat left and only vegetables. Wu Kai asked how it was possible that they were able to sell out all the meat so quickly, and the hostess pointed towards Lu Feng saying that all the meat was ordered by another guest at the bar. Ken had told his acquaintances about how Lu Feng was able to kill a 7th-level red wolf with just one strike, but they refused to believe it, as Wu Kai suddenly came up to them and asked his old acquaintance Ken Shi how he didn't die with the steppe orcs, because the Rhapsody Mercenary Regiment had prepared a great funeral for them, but Ken had ruined everything. Ken got angry over what Wu Kai had said and shouted that he had gone too far, but the latter decided to remind him as Ken had just bragged. He asked how that brat could kill a level 7 red wolf if he didn't even have a battle spirit, after which he started laughing out loud, but Ken Si kept admitting it was true. After which, Wu Kai suggested that Lu Feng should kill him, and if he didn't fall, it would prove that Ken Shi was just an empty-headed person. Lu Feng agreed to it but offered to raise the bet. The bet was that if Wu Kai lost, he would leave this place forever, and Wu Kai gladly accepted it as he began to unleash his fighting spirit. But Ken noticed something and forbade Lu Feng from attacking him, because Wu Kai had lied and he was already at level 8. Lu Feng asked Ken Shi to have faith in him and borrow a pipe from the landlady. Lu Feng explained to Wu Kai that he wouldn't even need a sword, and a pipe would be just fine, after which, Lu Feng raised the tube to Wu Kai's neck and released his power. He was going to take revenge on Wu Kai for daring to offend his friend. The people who were watching were shocked at the kid who went crazy and challenged Wu Kai, and they started questioning Ken Shi about whether his friend would be okay, because Wu Kai looks really pissed off. Ken Shi pondered that even if he was confident that Lu Feng would be fine, Wu Kai's strength was beyond imagination, causing him to fear. After all, Brother Lu and Wu Kai are fighting over him, and if he won't believe in him, is he worthy to be called his friend? Ken Shi once again said that he had seen Lu Feng defeat the Red Wolf with his own eyes with just one sword strike, so he was convinced that Wu Kai was clearly not an opponent who could easily defeat Lu Feng, and if anyone does not believe, he is ready to argue with them, after which his acquaintances happily decided to take away from Ken Shi not only his money, but also his pride. Wu Kai rushed at Lu Feng expecting that he could easily defeat him. Lu Feng, on the other hand, decided to try out a new trick that he had mastered the other day with Huaxia's technique, and he concentrated, beginning to recite a mysterious spell, then split into two Lu Feng while dodging Wu Kai's attack, and gave Wu Kai two powerful blows with the help of the tubes, which threw him so far back that even the tavern wall was breached. Lu Feng assumed that Wu Kai wouldn't wake up today, and admitted that he almost lost today, because it was not easy to pull off such a thing with a pipe. The audience was shocked that Wu Kai was defeated by one punch, causing some to assume that he had lied to them about his level. Ken Shi laughed out loud and called Brother Lu Feng incredible, for he was able to do something that no one expected. He then demanded money from the people who lost the argument, but they refused, saying that he had definitely colluded with Kai. Kai's men ran up to him and lifting the boss told Ken Si that he would have to pay for what he had done. After that, they ran away from the bar. And Lu Feng was convinced that no matter what world a person was in, the villains would always say the same thing. After a while, Ken Shi came running to Lu Feng and praised his brilliance, because he was able to earn so much money, and so he was willing to give Lu Feng half of it. But Lu Feng offered to give the money to the mercenaries. Then Ken Shi came to Lu Feng and whispered that Wu Kai was very stubborn, and the leader of the regiment, Mo2, would definitely not forgive him. Lu Feng thanked Ken Shi and said that he would take Xiao Jin and leave immediately. Ken Si threw the gold on the table and asked the hostess to count everything that was broken, promising to make good on all the damage. Taking the bag, the hostess asked what to do with the rest, to which Ken Si told her she could keep the rest as a tip, but unfortunately, she said she meant that it wasn't enough to pay for the food and whatever was broken. Upon receiving the check, Ken was amazed. He asked Xiao Jin how many servings he had eaten and he replied that it was only 9 servings and that was enough to fill himself up. A while later, Ken Shi with Lu Feng and Xiao Jing were walking through the forest. Lu Feng thanked his brother Ken for showing kindness. After all, the fault lies entirely on him, and Ken not only gave all his money, but also bailed clothes. Lu Feng replied that there was no problem with that, as Lu Feng was already like his own brother. Then he frowned sharply, remembering the huge sum of debt at the tavern. Suddenly there was a rustle and someone in a cloak came out to them offering to earn some money. The backyard of the mercenary regiment. People were drowning in the black liquid, begging Mo2 to save them, and promising that they wouldn't fail again. And as soon as they drowned, Wu Kai's companions ran up to the black slurry and informed him that the deputy head had been defeated. Mo2 asked what they meant and was told that it was all because of the new kid in the squad. Ken Shi and he was also able to defeat Wu Kai with only one punch. Right after that, a skinny man who was the head of their guild appeared out of the black slurry and asked how Wu Kai could fall so easily if he was rank 8. And there was no way Kenshi would be able to hire such a strong warrior, so he wanted to see him. One of the guild members explained that based on the scout's report, Kenshi's squad was now moving into the mercenary guild. After a while, the mercenary guild, Lu Feng asked how brother Ken was able to return their clothes, and he replied that he just humiliated himself very much in front of the mistress until she gave the clothes back. Then Lu Feng asked if they could take a C-class mission from that mysterious man if he became a level 7 mercenary, to which Ken replied that a mercenary regiment can't take missions above their level, and if Lu Feng turned out to be level 7 or higher, their squad would be promoted to C-class, which means they'll be able to earn more and have enough to even pay their tavern debt. Lu Feng thought about the recent incident. He thought it was suspicious that he had a mission in his hands so easily. But suddenly, brother Ken clapped Lu Feng on the shoulder, interrupting his thoughts, and said that they had already arrived. Whereupon he explained that he could use this stone to find out his strength level. Lu Feng approached the receptionist and explained that it was his first time here and therefore he wanted to sign up for a skill test to assess his strength. And he told him to go to the stone in the middle and hit it with all his might. Lu Feng walked over to the stone and immediately hit it. But there was no special result. The administrator was shocked by this since nothing happened and asked Lu Feng that if it wasn't a punch, it could have been magic, which he immediately rejected. The administrator got angry because of what he heard and asked how one could have no magic or spirit. And the people around him started to thank Lu Feng for the funny performance. After all, he wanted to become a warrior without spirit. After which, a scarred man came up to Lu Feng and grabbed his clothes and said that if he was a complete trash, he better get home soon and not come out again. Lu Feng demanded to be let go, but the man laughed because this kind of trash is also trying to be cool. Just as suddenly, Lu Feng punched the man in the face, immediately knocking him to the ground, and asked the receptionist to have it checked again. Immediately afterward, a woman entered the hall and asked who was making noise here, because according to the rules, fighting in the Association Guild was forbidden. That woman was the chairwoman of the Sunset Fortress Mercenary Guild, Sophie. As soon as they saw Ms. Sophie, everyone in the room started drooling over her, and even Lu Feng had to agree that she was too sexy. She asked if he had done it, and Lu Feng pointed to the man behind, saying that it was the attacker and he was just defending himself. Afterward, the receptionist approached Sophie and lied to her about what had happened, and she was surprised that a man with no magic or spirit had decided to become a mercenary. But Lu Feng explained that all it took to become a mercenary was strength, and he just had it. She had no problem agreeing, but since the stone test was useless, she decided to test its power herself. She explained that if he won, she would give him a mercenary qualification, but if he lost, he would get the hell out of here, since she was sick of trash who could only make pretty speeches. Lu Feng agreed that since she was the guild leader, it was up to her to decide, but reminded her that fighting was forbidden in the guild, and she agreed with that, but then added that she is the rules. Meanwhile, Kenshi's nose was already bleeding profusely. He said that Ms. Sophie is incredible. For the sake of friendship and duty he has to support his brother, but at the same time he is a fan of Ms. Sophie and doesn't want to see her lose. Just as suddenly, Xiao Jin demanded that he should stop hesitating, and since he was a man, he should follow his heart. Immediately after that he began to support Miss Sophie in this fight, and Ken was amazed at how easily he came over to her side. As soon as the fight started, Sophie was immediately in front of Lu Feng using her killing attack, but suddenly she passed through him as if he were an illusion. She was amazed by this and tried to figure out how he was able to dodge her attack. After which, she instantly turned around and slashed at him again, but the attack once again had no effect. She was trying to figure out how strong he was, since he was able to dodge every one of her attacks. Not wanting to lose, she decided to use one trick of her own, after which, she instantly attacked Lu Feng by cutting off a few strands of his hair, causing him to wonder if it was an illusion, but he immediately came to the conclusion that she was suddenly speeding up. He assumed she was using the technique to overcome her limit to increase her speed, and so he was forced to admit that she was indeed a crazy woman, because even in this situation she was willing to put her life on the line. He decided that he had to stop her as soon as possible. Sophie was going to end the fight with one punch and used the Stormwind technique. Just as suddenly, Lu Feng was able to easily block her punch, surprising her at the same time. He asked her to stop, because there was no point in using techniques that could hurt her. Sophie was stunned by that blow, but still recognized that she had lost. Lu Feng already couldn't wait to see the qualification in his hands, when suddenly Sophie asked if he wanted something more. Bringing Lu Feng into her office, she told him that only the two of them were here and if he wanted to ask for something, he shouldn't be shy. Hearing this, he wondered if she would really honor any request. Sophie was pretty fierce during the fight, and now she's trying to seduce him, which could only mean she wants something from him. Lu Feng told her that he only wanted to get qualified as a mercenary, and he wasn't interested in anything else. When she heard that, she ran her finger over her lips disappointedly and asked if he was interested in her, to which he replied that they didn't know what they could get each other interested in yet, and so he again said he only wanted qualifications, whereupon she agreed to it saying that he had passed the test. Lu Feng was shocked that he was being tested as Miss Sophie suddenly tapped her hand on the table, scaring him even more. Rising from her chair, she bluntly said she wanted to take him on as her teammate, and so she decided to reintroduce herself. Her name is Sophie and she is one of the heirs of the mercenary guild. Each heir has his own regiment and she needs a strong assistant like him. After all, his persona and strength are good, and if he joins, he can ask her for anything. Hearing this, Lu Feng asked if she checked the others in this way as well, to which she replied that there were only a few like him in the world, and therefore he was the first one she called so, and if he joins, he'll step right into the position of commander, and also his salary will be doubled and he'll get a percentage of the missions. But Lu Feng apologized as he was not interested, after which she asked why he refused. After all, she had offered him quite generous terms, but he apologized again for this, for he had to decline the offer for personal reasons. Hearing that, Sophie got angry and slapped the mercenary's sign on the table. She told him that he couldn't pass the stone check, and according to the rules, mercenary badges could only be issued at the appraiser level, and since she was level 7, she could issue a badge no higher than level 7. Taking Lu Feng's sign, he said that level 7 would be enough for him and immediately thanked Sophie and left. Clenching her fist, she promised that she would remember him, and sooner or later, he would definitely join her squad. After a while, Lu Feng and Kenshi arrived at the house of the associates, and Ken immediately started banging loudly on the door calling out to Erfu and Beta, shouting that they needed to celebrate the group's promotion to C-class. But hearing no answer, he decided they had started drinking again without him and kicked the door open with his foot. But only after seeing Lu Feng's room with Kenshi did they realize that their business was not good. The house was trashed, and on the wall was a bloody inscription, "You'll pay for what you did." With MO2 signing off, Lu Feng got angry and clenched his fist and went to MO2 to make him regret running into them. As Kenshi suddenly blocked the doorway, he asked Lu Feng not to go there since it was clearly an ambush, and MO2 was at the peak of level 8, even though they had taken Beta away. But there was no way Kenshi could let Lu Feng's brother Lu Feng walk straight into a trap. Lu Feng asked if Kenshi wanted Beta to die, and Xiao Jin said they would definitely save them. Kenshi then offered to report it to law enforcement, but Lu Feng rejected this suggestion saying that if they cared, there was no way they would let the Rhapsodian regiment do whatever they wanted. Kenshi tried to explain to Lu Feng that they had no other choice, and in the end Lu Feng agreed with Ken. He told him he would go and report back tomorrow. Kenshi decided to calm Lu Feng down and told him that killing was forbidden in the Sunset Fortress, and therefore MO2 wouldn't dare to do it, and Lu Feng agreed saying that he hoped so. Kenshi found it very suspicious how easily Lu Feng agreed with him, and suggested he go out to eat, for after a long day's work they were both very tired. Hearing about the food, Xiao Jin's saliva immediately flowed, and Kenshi asked him what he wanted to eat, to which he replied that he wanted meat. Lots of meat. At night of the same day, Kenshi got drunk and fell asleep, with Xiao Jin sprawled beside him. In his dream, Kenshi promised to save Beta, and once Lu Feng made sure that they were sleeping soundly enough, he immediately headed towards the headquarters of MO2's mercenary regiment. As soon as Lu Feng approached the headquarters, he was immediately surrounded by MO2's men. Lu Feng wasn't even surprised as he was confident in Brother Ken's words, and in the blink of an eye, he dealt with all the attackers, after which he took a step and a moment later a magic circle appeared around him. Immediately after, he jumped up, dodging the flames coming out from the circle. He realized that there was probably a mage hiding here somewhere, and looked around to see him hiding behind the foliage. Then he threw his holy sword, causing the mage to become frightened and lose consciousness. Taking back his sword, Lu Feng was surprised at how simple everything had gone, and couldn't understand how MO2 dared to let his men die. Suddenly, Lu Feng heard a voice. That person assumed that Lu Feng was the one who defeated Wu Kai. Lu Feng turned around, expecting MO2 to be there, but he wasn't, and he said that he would kill Lu Feng, after which, Lu Feng decided to walk towards the direction from where Mo2's voice came from, but coming to the place he did not find him and ordered him to stop hiding, to which he replied that he was not hiding, immediately after which, the ground beneath Lu Feng's feet began to turn into mud and engulf him, after which, he was surrounded and was already preparing to attack Lu Feng with all his might. Lu Feng started swinging his sword, trying to free himself from the swamp. But Mo2's voice from the swamp told him that there was no point and there was no way he could hit his body. Just as suddenly, Mo2 ordered the archers to attack and Lu Feng immediately took cover. But no one attacked him, and all the archers disappeared, causing Lu Feng to not be able to understand what was going on. Immediately afterward, a red-haired girl appeared on the wall and handed him a whip. To Lu Feng, her voice sounded familiar, and he grabbed the whip immediately, after which he was pulled out. Just as Mo2 suddenly asked where he was going and dirt began to rise from the ground, after which, she took the form of a huge mud golem and tried to grab Lu Feng. But Lu Feng replied that he wasn't going to run away and cut the golem's arm into pieces. But the one immediately began to regenerate, surprising Lu Feng with the speed of regeneration. Right after which, Lu Feng finally felt a solid surface under his feet as he was pulled out. Looking around, he wondered if she had gotten rid of all those people, to which she replied that it was all because of a powerful potent drug that causes instant dizziness. Just as suddenly a mud golem decided to interrupt their conversation and throw a huge chunk of mud at them, which Lu Feng and the woman were able to easily dodge. Lu Feng said that they needed to find the monster's weak spot since it was recovering quickly, and most importantly find Mo2. The woman explained that Mo2 is hiding in a swamp where he becomes completely invisible, and therefore they only need to destroy the swamp. After which it began to shoot out a multitude of blue orbs, which turned the mud golem into ice at a touch. Seeing this, Lu Feng recognized that it was really strong and asked what it was, to which she replied that it was just a small gift prepared for Mo2. The woman demanded that Mo2 never show himself to them again or she would turn him into an equally icy statue. After which Mo2 broke through the frozen mud and climbed out of the golem. He asked the stranger who she was, to which she replied that it wasn't that important, especially since his opponent wasn't her. Mo2 asked if she thought she could scare him with a normal freeze, after which, Lu Feng jumped to him and shouted for him to stop talking and just die. But as soon as Lu Feng approached, Mo2 immediately bowed down and started begging Lu Feng for mercy. He apologized, and hoped that Lu Feng could forgive him for the mistake he had made, after which, he began to offer Lu Feng money, and even girls if he only wanted to. But Lu Feng remained adamant and ordered the man to let Beta go. Mo2 replied that he would do it without any problem, but before doing so, he would like to show one thing. Immediately after which, he threw a scroll with a magic seal at Lu Feng. Just as suddenly, Lu Feng was instantly behind his back dodging the sneak attack, and before Mo2 realized how he was behind his back, Lu Feng had already attacked him. It wasn't until a moment later that he pierced Mo that he said he didn't need to know about it. The woman praised Lu Feng for such a good move, so he decided to ask her who she was. She then jumped off the wall and told him not to be nervous because it was her. Unexpectedly, but underneath the mask was Sophie. She was glad she was lucky enough to come to the rescue in time, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to escape the trouble, and immediately ran to Lu Feng asking how Sis should thank him for saving her. But he didn't put his sword away and started questioning her about what she was doing here and what she was helping him for, to which she replied that everything was because she liked him and also Mo2 was dangerous enough for him, so she decided to help her future leader, and Lu Feng reminded that he hadn't promised to join her regiment, whereupon she smirked and decided to act tougher. Immediately after that, she pulled out a huge check out of nowhere. It included 5 bottles of potent medicine for 200 gold, 30 ice spells for 100 gold, and her appearance fee of 200 gold. Lu Feng was amazed at the appearance fee, and said that it would be hard to pay for all of this, and she agreed to it, because not only was she a level 7 mercenary, but she was also the chairman of the Sunset Fortress Mercenary Guild, which made the appearance fee so high, and if some other points were taken into account, it would be 8,000, but for an acquaintance, she was willing to lower the price to 7,000. She then gave him a scroll and explained that all the details of the payment were written down in it, and he could personally tweak them. Well, if he has no money, he can just work for her to pay off his debt, and he'll be a regimental commander, from which Lu Feng sighed and said that he would find another way to pay her debt, but he would not join the regiment, and Sophie agreed, after which she offered to clean up the mess. After a while, Sophie explains to Lu Feng that his friends were hypnotized by MOT and therefore they won't remember anything about what happened. And she also added that although she's responsible for the consequences, of course she'll put it all on his tab. Lu Feng thanked her, and admitted that he had previously thought that she was not a very kind woman, but she still turned out to be good. Sophie asked what kind of woman he was talking about, and he rubbed his head realizing what she meant, but she said it didn't matter, because many people perceived her the same way. Anyone who wants to enter the mercenary world is bound to be prepared to face slander, and after a while she was used to it. And Lu Feng said that there is a proverb in his homeland, how much slander you can withstand, there will be as much praise. He admitted that it is indeed amazing. After pondering the proverb, Sophie smiled and thanked Lu Feng for that. After all, he was the first one who could understand her so well. Lu Feng was glad that he was able to lift her spirits, as she suddenly said that she would write off another 1,000 gold from his debt, and smelling a chance he said that he had many more good proverbs in his homeland. But Sophie replied that it was useless, and though he could say more, it wouldn't cut his check. Whereupon he began to beg that she would listen to one more proverb, to which she replied that she would cut him no more checks, after which they laughed together from the situation, and they decided to shake hands in honor of their acquaintance, for they were now friends. In the morning, Ken saw the rescued companions and started asking Lu Feng if he was with the Rhapsody Regiment, but the man started making excuses that he wasn't with them, and their companions were brought by Sophie. Anyway, even though they're back, now they need to be woken up, and then Ken realized that since they had been put to sleep by the spell, they needed to find a mage who could help them and immediately went off to find one. Left alone with the sleepers, Lu Feng thought about Mo2's words, the one who said that he had too little combat experience, but where could one find an opponent strong enough to battle him? He then realized how to get an opponent for free and created his mirror doppelganger. Right after that they started fighting. The doppelganger had only 30% of his strength, but the advantage was that he was completely obedient to him and he had no feelings or fear of being hurt, making him the perfect opponent. But with his current strength, he could only maintain it for 3 minutes, meaning that it was best only used in critical situations. Suddenly Ken showed up nearby, shouting that they were in trouble because the entire Rhapsodic Regiment had entered the building during the night and now everyone in town was just talking about it. Suddenly, he noticed that there were 2 Lu Feng brothers standing in front of him at once instead of just one, after which he decided to rub his eyes thinking he was still asleep, and after opening his eyes, he realized that he had actually imagined it, whereupon Lu Feng asked him what had happened, and Brother Ken, returning the frightened look on his face, told me that last night the entire Rhapsody Regiment had gone into the building after which it had disappeared. Suddenly, they heard someone's footsteps, and when Ken saw him, he was too strong. The cloaked stranger told Lu Feng that he knew about what he had done, and therefore he should go with him. Ken asked the stranger who he was and why he wanted to take Lu Feng away, to which the stranger replied to Ken that it was none of his business, and if he didn't want to retreat, the Fire Mercenary Regiment would be posted out of the fortress. Afterward, Lu Feng told Brother Ken that everything was fine and he would talk to him. Lu Feng explained that if that type wanted to cause trouble, he would easily get out. He asked me to wait for him, for he would be back very soon. Xiao Jin explained that he just had to return quickly. After all, he had promised to take him to the market. Lastly, Ken asked Lu Feng to be careful with this type of person. After a while, Lu Feng and the stranger had gone quite far away from the city. Suddenly, the man stopped and told Lu Feng that he could stop since the Xinren terrain was further away. The stranger then took off his hood and said that he was the captain of the law enforcement team of Sunset Fortress and his name was Aho. From which Lu Feng was surprised by such an important person and asked what he needed from him. And the captain explained, he wants to be friends since Lu Feng is quite amazing and he would like to know about his teacher. Lu Feng immediately suspected something wrong, because he didn't want to be friends, but rather wanted to gather information. After thinking it over, he said that his teacher had been disappointed by the student's incompetence and therefore he had no right to call him by name, after which the latter decided that if Lu Feng wasn't talking about it, he could ask about something else, and directly asked if Lu Feng was guilty of what happened to the Rhapsody Regiment. Lu Feng was surprised because of what he heard, and asked what he was talking about, and the captain explained that a group of mercenaries from the Rhapsody Regiment disappeared last night and their captain was found dead, and the most suspicious about it is Lu Feng. But hearing about the slander, Lu Feng demanded for evidence. After that, the captain drew his sword and said that he had done everything qualitatively, which made it impossible to find any clues. and so he decided to just kill Lu Feng regardless of whether he is a murderer or not. Either way, he remembered his crimes, and Lu Feng asked if it was right that the law enforcement captain was upholding justice in this way, and therefore it was no wonder that the Rhapsody Mercenary Regiment had remained in the Sunset Fortress for so many years. Hearing about justice, the captain grinned. He explained that the one whose fist was bigger was the one who was fair, and since he was invincible, he would naturally be right all the time. Since the fight was unavoidable, then Lu Feng decided to ask if the captain's strength was really at the peak of rank 9 right now, and the captain immediately replied that it was true, after which he asked Lu Feng if he was scared. Lu Feng was satisfied with what he heard. He believed that if he won now, he could go back and avenge Wei Er. Immediately after which, Captain Aho announced the start of the battle and immediately used a wind dash to swiftly cleave Lu Feng with his sword. But suddenly he was behind him and his blade was ready to strike. Reacting in time, Captain Aho instantly turned around and was already anticipating how he would take his opponent's life. But Lu Feng was able to block his mighty punch and stay on his feet. Barely holding back his opponent's attack, Lu Feng had no choice but to admit that he was indeed strong. Captain Aho praised Lu Feng for being able to block his strike, and recognized that his abilities went beyond what he had expected, and even his sword was not easy. But alas, he was not yet able to unleash its full potential. Aho said that Lu Feng's attacks were strange, for they didn't use any magic or spirit, and the way he suddenly disappeared made him even more interested in him. Saying that, Captain Aho once again delivered his mighty blow, but Lu Feng was once again able to dodge the attack and instantly moved behind his back. Immediately after that, the captain struck his back, but Lu Feng was able to dodge again. Lu Feng was startled by how fast the enemy's attacks were, but he had little internal energy, and therefore there is only one trick he can use, and blocked the wave that appeared from Aho's last attack. Suddenly Captain Ahav aimed his sword at the ground and said he finally understood. He realized that Lu Feng was trying to deprive him of his sword, and it was because Lu Feng had a trick to significantly increase his strength, and also his weird body clone, although its effect is good, but it obviously can't be used at will, and so you have to limit the number of uses or it consumes more energy. He was sure he'd gotten it right. Though his power was strange, it didn't make him invulnerable, and his fighting skills were worse than Aho's. After saying that, fire armor appeared around Aho's body, and he told Lu Feng that he was now clearly finished. This armor was part of an ability that only the strongest at the 9th level peaks could master. After which, he suggested that Lu Feng should use all his strength or else he would simply die, and Lu Feng immediately agreed to such a thing and attacked the opponent. Meanwhile, Xiao Jin finished the last chicken leg. He was frustrated that while he was eating all those legs, Lu Feng kept not coming back, as Wu Kai suddenly appeared behind him. Their commander's whereabouts were unknown, and therefore he was sure that it was because of the fire regiment, and perhaps if he hadn't been hiding to heal his wound, he too would be finished. And while Ken Shi and Lu Feng are missing somewhere, then he has a chance to kill this child and Beita to avenge the leader. After that, he crept as close to the dragonkin as he could and was already preparing to take his life. I'll end here. So guys, if you liked this video and want the second part, then give this video 1000 likes. Also subscribe to the channel, click on the bell and like, but most importantly, leave a comment. Until the next video.